everybody. Hope you've had a good week. We are on to another episode on the Honest Athlete podcast. And today it is a good conversation between myself and the awesome Lauren Quigley. And we're going to be looking a little bit into the swim life balance, sort of the positives, looking at what things for us growing up, how we balanced swimming and life, especially growing up as a teenager. You've got school, you've got exams, you've got homework, you might have different sports and activities, and sometimes getting that balance right. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but I think it's really important to discuss options, different ways of doing it. And yeah, I think it'll just be really insightful to hopefully just discuss this topic that's pretty important for the developing age group swimmer.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And it was only really since I left the sport that I'd started to think about life balance and how much it affects you as an athlete or as a student or as a husband or a mum or a daughter or anything like that. So it's a really interesting one, and it's a tough one as an athlete. It really is. And I'm sure we'll dive deep into our own experiences as well as where we think there's areas that people can work on and stuff like that. So I always, when I talk about this topic, my first question to anyone is, well, first of all, Hannah, I'm sure you've heard of the term a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. And I really believe in that. If a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer, if you're happy, obviously you've got to do some training, stuff like that. But if you're happy and enjoying what you're doing, then you're going to swim fast 9 out of 10 times. So my next question is, what makes a happy swimmer, or what makes a happy Hannah?
I think it's a level of balance, feeling like you're in control. So if you feel like training's going well, schoolwork going well, it's like maintaining a level of stress that's manageable, and that sort of feeling of content. So everything is, it's just everything feels like you're in control or it's under control. And for me growing up, it was knowing that I'd done my homework, knowing that if I had an exam coming up, I felt ready exam wise, or getting different sort of studying strategies in place, but also feeling like I could still maintain training. And for me, I actually benefited a lot by continuing training because I'm very, very scatty. I'll take on far too many tasks and my brain will just kind of branch out into 12 different areas. So routine and structure was very, very important for me. And maintaining actually swim training throughout the sort of stressful period for me, which was, I guess, exam time, really helped, because it meant that, right, I'm going to be swimming at this time, so I have to get a block of studying done, or I have to get homework done. So it kind of held me accountable to that, and for me it gave me that balance. But yeah, definitely felt a lot happier when things felt in control or under control. I'm trying to think in my head other areas. There's lots of different things that make me happy when I've second breakfast, or bed. Like little things like that can make me very, very happy. But definitely, I think from as a teenager, it was just feeling a little bit in control and just having stuff feeling a bit more balanced and leveled out. But each day was different. It would vary on the sort of level, or it's the seesaw effect. Some days were good, some days weren't so good. Yeah.
No, definitely. And so, like you've said there, it's having everything it's kind of planning, isn't it? Being an athlete, you have to be planned. It's a great way to teach time management, because you don't have a choice. You have to have things ready. You have to look ahead. You have to go, am I getting enough of my social in, but my training, my homework? What I do now with my diary is color code everything. So I can literally just look at it and go, am I getting enough of everything? Have I got a bit too much yellow in there?
Yeah.
Is there too much blue? Can I bring a bit more of that in? And trying to keep it varied is super important. I always use a pick and mix kind of explanation. And it's, if you go to cinema every day, if you went to cinema every day, what's your favorite sweet, Hannah? What's your favorite sweet?
Is it Razzles or Dazzle, the little sort of like white chocolate?
I think it's Razzles. Yeah, Razzles.
Yeah.
So great sweet, by the way, great choice. It's like you go to the cinema every day and eating those Razzles, getting Razzles, a full bag every day, and you eat them every single day. Now, you love Razzles, but by the end of the week or the month or the year, you would hate them. You
Yep.
would hate them, eating them every day. So it's about going to cinema and getting a mixture of everything. Because if you're just going to eat the same sweet every day, then it's going to be a problem. And I kind of did that for one of my swimming years. So I always show like a get up in the morning, go training, go to the gym, come home, have my breakfast, go to bed, have lunch, go back to bed, have a nap, go to the pool, do yoga, have a swim, come home, have my breakfast, have my dinner, and go to bed. And then I say, right, if we look at that again, bedroom, swimming pool, kitchen, bedroom, kitchen, bedroom, swimming pool, kitchen, bedroom.
Yeah.
That's like 3 places that I went to in this 1 year. 3 places. And that is me eating Razzles every day for a year. And so I always then think, and we've all seen it, and it looks great on a t-shirt, but what is it? Train, eat, sleep, repeat.
Yeah.
Now that it looks great on a t-shirt, it really does. And I know that's, it's not something to live by, but you see it all the time. And I always think, oh, I'd love to just add a few more words into that. So maybe it didn't look as good on a t-shirt, but it didn't promote so much of just, this grind, you've just got to do this grind. And I'm not sure if you ever kind of went through something like that when you were swimming.
Yeah, there's a little bit of it. We kind of had a bit of a phase, like a phrase called the monotony of excellence. So sometimes the mundane things of, doing that, sleep, eat, train, repeat, it is monotonous and it is the same. But I do think being able to add in something that little bit different, so whether it's a hobby, whether it's arranging that social meetup with like your friends or doing something that just breaks it up a little bit, I think is, you're right, that's your shrimps and bananas, or you're trying to think of
your strobes.
Yeah, your strobes. And I think it is important because yes, you've got that process. And swimming, I always think swimming's such an old school sport in a sense of when you do the work, you don't see the results instantly. Swimming being in an old school kind of sports, if you do a really good training session, you're not going to see the results from that training session that weekend. It's the consistency and persistence of doing, day in, day out, weeks, months of it to build up that foundation, like building a house, with the aim of the results occurring either in the spring or in the summertime. But you've got to look after, it's not just the physical side of it, it's the mental side, because your brain can control so much of what your body is capable of. Like your body is capable of some incredible things physiologically, but our headspace, we have to look after our mindset. And yes, physically we can train, eat, sleep, repeat, but mentally, I think it needs to be something slightly different. So mentally, you need to allow yourself that breathing space to recover, to do something that's fun for you. And to allow that individuality and growth mindset, work out what you're good at, what your likes or dislikes are, and, enjoy some time for you, because sports, and it's not just swimming, is so encompassing, because families, your parents have to drive you to and from training up until you can drive. Siblings, you give away weekends, you give away holidays. Like there's so much that you give up. So it's important to allow yourself some time to, keep it fresh, keep yourself balanced. And yeah, it's such a, and it's a tricky thing because, as I say, some people can cope with that train, eat, sleep, repeat really well, but maybe later on down the line they'll struggle, where some really struggle with that. So it's so important to have that variety within it. And as you say, add in a couple of extra little bits too. And that's why I think as well, especially young teens, have either other sports or other activities that aren't just specifically sport based. It doesn't have to be other sports. It could be other hobbies. It could be, something creative. But I do think specializing and zoning in on a sport so young, so early, physically, yes, they might have benefits, but mentally it can really have an impact. And it's so important to protect the mindset, because there's a lot of variables happening within the world nowadays that can really affect it, and you can have your body 90% physically ready, but that 10% mentally can be make or break with whether you continue your career or make a final or medal or whatever your success definition is.
Yeah, absolutely. I get a lot of parents, and I'm sure you do, asking, or actually younger athletes, how do you balance that, the exam phases and trying to get all your work done and revision and all that kind of stuff with being a swimmer or an athlete who does a lot of training? And for me, it is planning. Like you mentioned it before, it's planning, it's knowing what's coming up. It's also, I also think that having a positive life balance doesn't always mean that everything will be completely level. You obviously will have phases throughout a year where swimming will take priority, and then you've got exams and your schoolwork and everything has to take priority. Or if you're in a job, there might be something major coming up there. There's lots of things. Family, there could be things that happen with family that obviously need to take priority. So it's being able to be adaptable. But one thing that I always found very useful was honest communication with my coaches, with my parents, with my teachers. And it's not necessarily very easy as a younger athlete, going up to teachers or older people. It can be quite daunting, but if you're someone that does work hard and put the effort in all areas, as much as you can, when you have these honest conversations with teachers or parents or coaches, they will know that you're not someone that's just going, oh, can I have a bit of extra time? They're like, well, as a coach, when a swimmer comes up to me and they say, look, I've got a lot going on, if I know that swimmer gives me, everything they can and they work really hard, it's no problem. It is no problem at all. So it's just about communicating, I think, also being adaptable. But is there anything that you did when you were younger? Because particularly around exam periods, I see that's a big problem. Well, not a problem, but it's a tough time.
It is. And I think as well for, I think from the age of 12 up until about 18, every year is different in a sense of academically, because you're starting to build up into the exams, but also physically as well. Puberty makes a big difference. So physically, your body's never going to be the same from month to month. So it's really hard to have that routine, because what worked for you, maybe when you're 14, it's not going to be the same when you're 16 or 18. So things have to change, and you rightly said there, it is about being adaptable. But what helped me, especially during exam time, was actually asking for help. And sometimes it's the one thing that I think we struggle at, because we don't want to be seen as helpless or seen as not being able to do it. So I would actually regularly message or actually go and speak to my teachers and ask if I could sit with them over my lunch break. So I actually did sacrifice my lunch breaks. If I wasn't having lunch, I was in the library or meeting a teacher, just to stay up to date and catch up with bits that I just didn't understand. Um, I would also try and arrange study groups. So I was very fortunate that I had a couple of friends who were absolute in brain boxes. They were incredible at the subjects, especially that I was struggling at. So like physics and maths. So I would basically sit and just pick their brains, be like, please help me. And, that in a sense, because then it allowed me to kind of socially, be with them, albeit it is homework and it's school stuff that you're doing. But I appreciated, their level of teaching me, because I got to sort of see it from their perspective and how they could help me with it. And that helped massively. And I quite enjoyed, being like arranging study groups. But communication, you're so right, is so, so important, because I think if you can keep your support network is so important, because everybody's there to make sure that, you are doing your best and, help you to get to where you need to be. So the more you can communicate and let people know. So if you're struggling, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're exhausted or tired, being able to vocally speak, will help mentally and emotionally allow you, so you're not bottling it up. But also they might be able to offer strategies to help. So especially your coaches, if you find that you are getting overwhelmed and stressed with swimming, speak to them. It might be, for me, as I say, I didn't miss any training because that worked for me. I needed that structure and routine. But for another athlete, that might not work. It might be too overwhelming. So it might be they might have to cut back and reduce the number of training sessions to allow a little bit more time on studying to give that level of balance and control. Parents as well, because there's a lot going on, especially if it's a busy family household, if they're working. So it keeps them in the loop. And I would create a timetable, Monday to Sunday, when I trained, when I was at school, each of my different subjects. And then I would actually try and specifically put in when I was supposed to be studying. So we'd have that printed around the house. And, it helped my parents as well hold me accountable, but also for myself. So if I knew from like 4 till 5 when I came back from school, that was an hour for me to get like the rest of my homework or studying done. But I was sat watching TV. My mom could be like, come on, go and do that. At the same time, if I was maybe, I had studying done from 4 till 5, but I'd given myself a break for dinner, but I was still upstairs studying, my mom could come up and be like, right, time for a break, So it kind of kept communication within the family together because they were my support network. And I think it's so important to try and have a little bit of support network, whether it's your friends, your family, your school. Everybody's going to be different with how they studied. I had to physically write everything out and do mind mapping. Like I had to do a lot of studying. I even laminated some of my notes and took it to the pool. So when we did kick sets, I would look at it or leave it on poolside. And if it got wet, it was fine because there was a couple of us doing the same subjects. I would even hand it to Patrick and he would ask us questions in the middle of the session. No idea whether that's right or not, but it was just different ways of working it. So there's lots of different options out there, but it's important to know what works for one person might not work for another. So there's a couple of studying strategies that my dad would give me, and some of them worked, but some of them didn't, and that's okay. But I think it's important to know. And the key thing as well, I think, is prioritizing. I think, that train, eat, sleep, repeat part, it's being able to work out what is the priority here. So it is schoolwork. If you're wanting to go off and be a doctor or, something where the grades are so important, it might be that has to be the priority, because trying to hold two things at a really high standard and level is very, very challenging. So something's got to give, whether it is your sport or whether it is the social life, or can't have our cake and eat it. So it's a level of balance. And I'll admit, my social life wasn't great, not great, but it wasn't frequent. So I had to literally plan and book in when I was booking. It makes it sound like a like an appointment thing, but I had to plan when I would see my friends. And it was nice because it meant I had something to look forward to, because well, on top of the studying, you had competitions which would take up weekends. So there were birthday parties that I missed, there were cinema trips that I missed, but my friends were good and respectful enough that they knew, right, this weekend I've not got anything, let's go bowling, let's go to the cinema and watch this film. So they understood that I wasn't always there frequently. So it's it's not straightforward, but definitely planning is a big thing.
Yeah, no, it's not straightforward. And also something that you highlighted there of it being very individual. Doesn't work for one, but it might work for the other. I know people who used to love going, for example, to a session in the morning, the training session in the morning before an exam, because it woke them up. Whereas I knew some people, they felt super tired during the exam, so maybe that wasn't the best thing for them. I always enjoy training before an exam because I felt like, right, okay, I'm awake now. But yeah, it's very individual, and it's really important to find your way with it. And like you said, for some people that train, eat, sleep, repeat does work. And for a while, I swam really well off it, but then it caught me up, and it was like, hold on a second, I haven't got a life. Who am I? What am I doing? Who am I outside of swimming? That kind of thing. So another thing that I wanted to touch on as well is, and it was Liam Tancock that kind of opened my eyes to this one. I remember training with him in Loughborough. We were at a national camp, and this was a long time ago now, but Liam swam awful. He swam awful in this one session, and admittedly so. And, I remember just training alongside him, and in the session, it wasn't going well and all that kind of stuff. And then we got out and we all went for a shower. And Liam came bouncing over, and he was like, anyway, so, and he was his amazing self, don't really happy. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I'd swam like that, I'd be really upset. I would take it back with me, take it home. And I said to him, are you not disappointed with the set? And he was like, yeah, of course I am. That was rubbish. But he kind of explained transitioning into different roles of his life as he goes along. So rather than getting out of the pool and taking it with him home, and then it kind of rolling into Liam, who was starving and needed to have dinner, and then Liam, who maybe needed to do some studying or whatever he was doing next, he was like, yeah, in the pool I get frustrated, but when I get out of the pool, I kind of leave Liam the swimmer in the pool, and I go into Liam, just who I am, and trying to enjoy it and having a laugh with everyone in the shower. There's no point in taking it with me. And I thought that was really important, because I link it to that life balance, because I used to take everything with me, especially the bad stuff. And so there would be no balance, because the swimmer would be with me all the time. I'd never just go, actually, I'm just Lauren who's going to cinema today with my friends. I would still be Lauren the swimmer who did a really bad set this morning, and that's so frustrating. And so I think that's really important, of like being able to transition into other roles of your life, not carry one into the next. And of course you will naturally think about other things. You'll take swimming with you to places, or you'll take your exams, or you'll take your schoolwork or whatever. But actually, no, being able to just take off the costume and let the swimmer go with it, and do transition into other roles. Have you ever experienced maybe too much of that at any point, where you've taken the swimmer everywhere, or the student everywhere?
Well, my dad was my coach, so swimming was everywhere. But also, I do think that there is a difference between males and females, like how females perceive it. Where females, I think, are a lot more emotional, so there is that tendency to carry that swimmer, or to carry that around with you. And that's not to say it's wrong. It's just sometimes physically or chemically or biologically, that's how it is. And males, I have noticed, are very good at sometimes just letting things go. Whereas I know for me personally, I can sit and seethe. I can sit
I
and just...
remember doing a set, Hannah, in 2013. I can't let it. I'm joking. But I get you.
Yeah. And I do think as well, especially going through those teenage years, I think girls are a lot more prone to maybe overthinking and really hanging on to, because it's emotional. But memories and experiences are mostly affected by emotion, which is why you get some athletes that can be really nervous and terrified before races, because if they experience something bad, you want to avoid what's bad, so you become really anxious and stressed because you don't want to experience that, because that memory of that experience and feeling and emotion is so strong within you. But like, if you've never heard a song, well, you had a song that you played and repeat back when you were like 8 or 9, don't hear it for many years, play the song again, you could probably word for word repeat it, because it brings back that feeling. The brain's an incredible thing, and I'm not a psychologist, so I can't go into it specifically, but I definitely think girls can hang on to emotion a lot more compared to guys. That's not to say that guys can't. Some of them can, and same with girls. There's some girls that are very good at maybe being able to disassociate and actually do that. Just going to leave this at the pool. But it's important to recognize that. And I think you're right in a sense of, when you come out from the pool, it's almost like going through a doorway. Have you ever been, right, I need to remember this? You go through a door and you're like, why did I come in here again? So you always want to kind of go through a doorway of, right, okay, that was a terrible session. You leave the actual vicinity of a swimming pool and it's like, right, what am I doing again? No, you go through that doorway and it's into something fresh and something new. And I think it's something that can be learned, but it's going to take time. And I think it's that ability of developing that mindset. And if you do have something, and that's where I kind of go back to, having something else other than swimming, I think is so important, because as well, you branch out and you teach. That's why friends are important. That's why school's important. That's why life experience is so important, because you have to have experienced these moments of emotion, those moments of frustration, stresses, to know how to deal with it, because you learn how your response and coping mechanisms are. You might do something that's really frustrating, like a training session that's gone terrible. and you like throw your paddles across the pool because you're really annoyed that that person beat you. Was that the right choice to make? Probably not. But you learn afterwards whether you do that continuously, or you go, actually no, I've made that mistake, I'm not going to do that again. So sometimes it's not being afraid to actually, yeah, okay, maybe recognize it, maybe recognize, oh, actually maybe I am the swimmer that hangs on to things and doesn't let go. Okay, what can I do to, overcome that or move on from it? It can be breathing exercises. It can be actively going, right, as soon as I leave the vicinity of the leisure center, swimming pool, performance center, wherever it is, I'm going to actively think of what I'm going to have for tea, or I'm going to plan out, that I'm not very, as I say, I'm not a psychologist or a neurosurgeon or anything like that, but I definitely think there are strategies to help you be able to park it and kind of move on to the next thing, because it's just that one moment. That one moment doesn't define you. It's a learning experience, and with any learning experience, there's always going to be something good, something not so good, and then something you can move to improve. And I apply that to a lot of races as well. If the race doesn't go well, it's like, well, there is something that did go well, even if it's I stood on the block and started the race. That can be a positive. Always trying to find the positives, even within the negatives. And it's hard. It is really, really hard, but it can be done. And just find one thing that didn't go well, and then one thing that you're going to be like, right, I'm going to do that better next time. Because I think as well that one thing you can improve on allows you to then feel like you're moving forward, allows, okay, I can make it better. So you've got a really bad training session, right? What am I going to do? Right, I'm going to make sure I recover. So I'm going to eat well. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to maybe watch a movie, or I'm going to play a game with my family, or I'm going to have a phone call with my friends. Whatever your recovery strategies are, so that next training session, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to perform really well. Or yeah, kind of going around in circles here with what I'm saying, but it's a tough one, and I hugely admire Liam actually being so open with that, and for you to tell that story, because it's so important, because every athlete goes through it. You're not on your own. I've been through it. I'm sure you've been through it. Those moments of holding on to it. Same with like exam results as well. Nothing more terrifying than getting that envelope. Although I think now you can get an email, but I remember my mom
having to open an envelope. Oh, painful.
My mom drove to the pool. I'd had morning training, and she was like, here's your results. And I'm like, no, I don't want to open them right now.
Oh
no. But those moments as well, it's all part and parcel of growing up and becoming the person that you're meant to be. But also accepting that, because I completely failed my advanced higher biology prelim. So mock exam. Sorry, the Scottish system's slightly different too.
I noticed.
Yeah. To the point where I wasn't even almost allowed to sit the exam, and I was devastated. I remember being in floods of tears, like struggling to tell my mom and dad that I'd failed at something. So what I did was, instead of panicking and stressing about it, I was like, well, obviously the way that I was studying wasn't working. So I had to change up how I was studying, and I was like, right, I need a tutor. So I had to search for somebody to help tutor me, to help me understand it, to allow my brain to actually register what the information was, so that I could then apply it to the exam. And then in the final exam, I came away with a B. So going from like a 17% score from a prelim to getting a B overall, it was quite a big jump, but I knew I had to change. So it's important sometimes, those training sessions that don't go well, it's all part and parcel of the journey that is becoming an athlete, becoming who you are as a person, and dealing with things as well, dealing with sometimes setbacks and issues where things just don't go according to plan.
Yeah, no, that's so true. The life balance thing, you won't get it right either all the time. I think that's also really important to kind of acknowledge. You won't get it right. I definitely didn't get it right at times. And also when it does go off balance, because either you just haven't noticed and it slipped, or it's had to because you have had to focus on your sport or exams or anything like that for a little period of time. Always check yourself. So just make sure you just, okay, stand back. What's my life balance at the minute? Do I need to bring anything back in? Have I got enough of everything? Just always check the balance, because they can go off balance very easily without even realizing. So just make sure that you do check in now and again. And if it has gone off balance, like we said before, communicate and all that kind of stuff. And also, there is a big team involved being an athlete. So that's not just, we aren't just talking about the athlete having that balance. We're talking about everyone in that team, because everybody's got to be of the right mindset. And to be of the right mindset, you've got to be happy in what you're doing at the pool or at the venue or whatever kind of capacity you're involved in the sport, but as well outside of that. So not just a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer, but a happy team is a successful team. And so everybody's got to make sure it's not just all about the athlete. I think that's an important one to say.
Yeah, you're right. It is, and it's a support network. You know, whether it's your family, friends, team, and your team is your biggest one because you spend so much time with them. So, from your perspective, growing up, then, how did you manage your sort of life balance?
I think my mum's always been really insanely super organized. So I picked up that one. I don't know if my brother did so much, but I definitely did. So my time management has always been really good. And that's just because I've watched mum do it. And I'm like, right, okay, I know I've got to do that. So for me, what works for me is having the structure, looking ahead, planning. And now that I've carried that through into life after, you know, sport, well, not sport, but competitive sport. And so now with my work, I have so many things, different things going on. That's helped me massively, because now I know, right, I know I can time manage. I know where I need to be. I've got all my schedules set, my diary, my phone, everything is in sync. But I have to be on top of that all the time. And the only reason I am able to be is because I learned that through swimming and having everything else going on. But when I was younger, it was definitely planning. My brother is very naturally intelligent, so he didn't necessarily have to revise so much. So I thought I could do that as well. So for a while, I thought I could get away with it, and I did okay, to be fair. But I needed to revise a bit more. So yeah, that's something that I probably could have scheduled in a little bit more. But I didn't necessarily like school, me personally. I didn't want to be there. I got bullied quite a bit, especially from year 7 to year 9. I was the weirdo with wet hair, smell of chlorine. You know, why would you get up at 4:30 in the morning? What weirdo does that to go swimming, and then wouldn't hang around with anyone, obviously, after school, because we're straight back to training. But that was okay for me because my friends were at swimming, so I was never really that bothered. And then, interestingly enough, in year 10, started to swim for Great Britain, and then everyone wanted to be friends with me. It was amazing, Hannah. But that never really bothered me too much, because I had my social outside of it at sport anyway. But it was an interesting one because I really did hate school. So that was a push for me to have to try, and I know I've got to do well in school, but I know I don't want to do it. So everyone that's listening who's an athlete, who's going through exams or doesn't necessarily like school, I get you. I was there. I really didn't like it either, but it is important. It's one of those things. Unfortunately, it's a legal requirement to a certain age anyway, but it's worth putting the effort in, because you have to do it anyway. And if you get that, like Hannah was saying earlier, if you get that time management locked in, you get that balance locked in, it's a means to an end, because you've got this time, right? I know I need to get it done in this time. Get it done, you'll feel so much better. And that always helped me. I was wanting to get my homework done as soon as I got it, because then I would feel better, right? I've done it, I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, that was kind of me trying to navigate everything. What about yourself?
Slightly different. I think for me, I was very good at doing what I was told. So I didn't mind school. There were some bits that I liked about it. Like I liked the structure of it. I liked the routine of it. But I did struggle to fit in. Again, like I was definitely not popular, but I wasn't ostracized. I was very grateful for the friends that I've made, because they have stayed with me, up until now. But because I think they were also very passionate within music, drama. Like they had so what I had in swimming, passion wise, they had in other areas. So I think we had like a mutual understanding, which was cool. But yeah, there was like a little bit of bullying as well, because for me, I had the mindset of when I finished swimming, I wouldn't spend time doing my hair or makeup in the mirror. I had this very strong mindset of, well, I want people to see me for who I am. I'm not going to hide behind anything. And if it means wet hair, cap line, logo marks, then so be it. So some people thought me was a little bit strange. Again, smelling of chlorine. I would always sit at the front of the class. I was just very strong-minded in a sense of I liked being different. So that didn't bother me. So when people did, bullying kind of didn't really, I mean, if I was being bullied, I didn't know about it. I mean, nobody was saying anything to my face. If they're saying it behind my back, I was completely oblivious. There were a couple of classes where there would be the odd comment and stuff, but when I was in fifth year, so that would be when I was 16, I'd made the Commonwealth Games team for the first time. And yeah, likewise, all of a sudden it was like, oh, you kind of almost like move up in their estimations, or you get a little bit of newfound respect. So I think people kind of just left me to it. But yeah, that balance of getting studying done as soon as I got homework, that was why I was in the library, because I was like, I can remember it. I'm just going to get it done. Because once you finish school, I was literally straight in the pool, and pool was literally next door to the school. So it was, about getting that done, so that once I finished swimming, it meant that I then had an evening to actually chill and relax, rather than, oh, I've now got to do homework. But it did mean that because I was in the library, I did miss out on, I guess, that socialization part where everyone would go off and do things. I mean, I was a bit odd as a kid at school. I mean, I had this thing where I would like ping pasta to stick on the roof, because I thought it was fascinating that pasta can stick on the roof.
Wow. Is that just school pasta, or is that like pasta from home?
Pasta.
School pasta, yeah. School pasta will stick to anything.
It will. And I'd walk around with like the biggest backpack ever, and I could fit inside it. Don't know why. All the girls had the Jane Norman like shoulder bag.
I never had a Jane Norman. I was never that cool.
Me too. I was in the Reebok bag that if I jumped inside it, you could zip it up and I'd fit inside this bag. And I always had to carry around like all my books. And then people would like, well, you don't need to carry everything. But I was like, no, I need to, just in case. And
just in case they say you've got science now. Oh gosh, I'm prepared.
Yeah. So I always kind of knew I was a little bit strange. And I don't know whether that was just my way of maybe dealing with my insecurity of being different. So it was just like, I might as well just embrace it. But definitely having that routine helped, and having that structure, I think, was my comfort. And I found a comfort in swimming, because as well as training through it, it did allow my headspace to clear. I found it so much easier to think and process things and actually revisit some of maybe my schoolwork whilst I was swimming. It did mean, though, that my ability to count lengths kind of went out the window. So the amount of times I would miscount on 300, 400, 200. So yeah, I kind of worked a strategy where I ended up actually using my fingers to count whilst I swam. So doing front crawl, I would like move my finger to one side to like, so it'd be like 50, 100, 250. I
can imagine you doing that in a race and the commentators are going, and Hannah Miley's now like spot. That's like, done 200.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was like massively different, but that's how it felt for me.
Yeah, you could feel it. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I was, still navigating the world. Mobile phones were kind of, I remember leaving primary school and we had one girl in the class who had just got the Nokia 3210.
Oh, what a phone.
It's like the big brick.
That he probably doesn't need to charge that yet either.
No. I think the Nokia still going strong. And little things like having that phone where you had like the £10 top up that it would take you £10 to use for the month. So you'd trying to say hi, how are you, and it's just like, right, press it 3 times and then
yeah. And also was always you. Like, you use too many characters because money.
Great. grade was GR8, and yeah,
Yeah.
all that kind of jazz. So and yeah, I just kind of I was just kind of in the middle with everything. I was never, as I say, super popular. I wasn't kind of isolated and on my own. I had like a little group around it, but just kind of quietly got on with things. So for me, the drive of getting my homework done to then be able to go and swim for me was kind of my drive. I really struggled with English. I love the sciences. All did maths, biology, physics, and chemistry. Loved biology. Did art as well. But I really, really struggled with English. Loved reading, but I was just too competitive in anything that I did. So it'd be like, right, we're going to do, a reading. You can read something and give a book report and all that. And then it'd be like, right, how many books can I read this weekend? So yeah, and we like, right, everyone hand in maybe 1 or 2 book reports. I did 5.
Oh, okay, I get you.
It was just always kind of in that within me to do that. But yeah, and I loved reading, but I just really, really struggled with English. And it was such that, my brain, I'd know what I need to say, I'd write it down. But then when I read it back, it would seem okay. But then when someone else read it, it was just like, what are you trying to say? It was really, really
You're already on the second book.
I know, and I'd always struggled to spell and those little bits, but I tried to get through it, and I knew I wasn't good at it, and it would be like try and do the best that I could in each one, and you have your strengths, subjects that you enjoy and subjects that you don't enjoy, French, English, those little bits I did struggle with, but I did what I could and managed it the best that I can. Asked my parents for help, asked the teachers for help, and that's all you can do. And you can't be good at everything. It's just getting that balance of enjoying the subjects that you do enjoy, but also the subjects that you don't enjoy. You'd be able to manage it in some shape or form. And yeah, I was trying to aspire to be a vet at the time. So for me, I felt science was more important. But then swimming kind of started taking over a little bit more. So I kind of had to get that balance. And I know when I was going away on training camps or I was going to be missing school, my dad would always write a letter of being like, right, Hannah's going to be, away from this period of time for swimming. Please feel free to give her any extra homework. And I'd be like, no, don't do that. But
Why?
yeah, no, but it helped massively because then I would email the teacher my work. So it meant that even if I was away on camp, I would still, try and factor in time to study so that I wouldn't fall behind. Even at the Commonwealth Games, I remember asking one of my teammates to help me with my higher maths homework. And whilst everybody was out exploring, I was kind of sat trying to get my maths homework finished. So it is that balance of prioritizing. I knew for me it was important to get schoolwork and grades. I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards because I knew being a vet you needed all A's, you needed lots of experience, and for me to have time to get experience was going to be difficult. And I knew I'm not a straight A student, so I was like, I'll do what I can. But I wanted to make sure that I came away, I guess, with something, and then try and get into university, and I did. But even still, it doesn't define who you are. I kind of think that there's sometimes a little bit too much pressure. Like you can drop out of school at 16 and go into apprenticeships. It's just a matter. There's so many different options now of what you can do. Sport is great, but sport isn't forever, and I do think it's important to have something in the back burner just in case. We'd all love to be, the Rebecca Adlingtons and Adam Peaty's winning loads of Olympic medals, but it is very, very difficult to do that. And if that doesn't happen, then what do you fall back on? So I do think it is important that while school can be really tough and challenging, be able to stick with it, because you might find something that you enjoy, or you might find, what, this really isn't for me. And that in itself is good because at least you now know, so you don't have to push yourself into something that you still don't enjoy. Yeah, it is a very interesting one, and I do find generation wise it changes up. Schools are very different now, and I really don't want to be that person that says, "Oh, back in my day."
I'll say for you, back in Hannah's day.
But yeah, but also I kind of just wanted to touch back a little bit for you, I guess around the bullying side, because it is something that happens now, still very frequently. How did you manage that? And did it affect you at all when you were in the pool, or was it something a bit like Liam Tancock? It was kept at school. If you don't mind me that personally.
No, of course not. I speak to a lot of athletes who go through similar, we as swimmers or as athletes, but particularly swimmers, I find, because we are a bit weird. Who does want to get up at 4:30 and go swimming? Well, we do, but why? I don't know. We just do. So I think it did affect me. When you have things in your life that happen and they're not the nicest things, so I know there's a thing, I don't know what it's called, but you block it out in your mind. You take it out of your mind. I remember not enjoying it, obviously. I remember being quite upset about it, but I also remember, I think that kind of, to forget it was to swim. So swimming, getting to swimming, seeing my friends at swimming, training hard, that got me through, I think. I almost became a school refuser because I hated it so much. The people weren't nice. I've always, as a person, just in general, got on with older people. So I got on with the teachers really well, and still, have some of them as friends even today. But I never wanted to know who Harry got off with behind the shed on Saturday night. I never wanted to know who's going out with who. I never wanted to know those things. I wasn't interested. And so then I then automatically became a weirdo, as well as having wet hair all the time, as well as not wanting to put loads of makeup on. I fell out of the norm in so many different ways. And also I was a weirdo. I was getting on with the teachers. Who gets on with the teachers, So I was, again, similar to you. I wasn't normal, what is normal, right? But I wasn't normal at that, going through school. And so I knew I was proud of what I was doing with swimming and not doing those things. I knew I was proud of that. But at the same time, I also just didn't want the hassle of it. I didn't, who wants to be laughed at? No one really. But I think I just became a mute at school. So I didn't talk really that much, which when I say that to people now, they go, there's no way. There's no way. But I'm like, well, I make up for it now, you see. So I'm just trying to catch up with myself. But I didn't want to get in trouble. I wanted to go under the radar. I almost wanted to not be seen, so then I wouldn't get bullied, because I would just, but when you smell like chlorine, you can't get away with it for too long. But yeah, I don't think I managed it. I think I just blocked it out. And I don't think that's the best way. I think it's important to share it. And if I could go back, I probably would. But at the same time, I say to my athletes now that I work with, there's a lot of conversations I have, and obviously everyone's different, so the way I approach it is different. But the reason, there's always a couple of reasons why people do get bullied in school, because of them doing something that's awesome. And that is either jealousy, because they want to be doing that. They want to be able to say that they are dedicating so much time to something that is keeping them healthy, and they're able to, if you're lucky enough, you get to travel with it. And so there's a jealousy there of, well, they probably want to be able to say that they have the commitment and to do that, but they don't. So I always say that's part of it. And the other part of it is sometimes they just don't get it, and that's fine. If they don't understand, that's fine. But unfortunately, some people's go-to when they don't understand something is to just laugh at it, especially at that age. And if you as an athlete can go, actually, I feel sorry for them that they feel they have to do that. I feel sorry for them that they feel, because they don't understand, they have to laugh at me for it. But now, obviously, I look back and I go, I love that I swam. I'm proud of it. It's great. I knew it would be worth it. And that's not because I went to the Commonwealth Games or I went to the World Championships or I was super successful. That's because I made some amazing friends. I learned a skill that is hard to learn. And I spent time keeping fit and keeping active and being in this world that I'm proud to be in. So you know, I think at the time, don't get me wrong, if anyone's listening now and you're going through something similar, at the time it's hard. It's really hard. You know, I'm not saying it's not. It was awful. I hated it at moments. But in the long run, or if you're able to try and step outside of that bubble for a second, know what you're doing is amazing. Be proud of it. And don't let anyone kind of make you feel like that, because it's more about them than it is about you. But I hope that answered what you were asking.
It does, and some. You've got such your the way you can articulate things is just incredible. Like your emotional intelligence as well. Like you've really hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. And you're right. Those who are listening, I think it's important for you guys to know that both Lauren and I think you guys are absolutely awesome, because what you do is so important to you. You're passionate about something, and yeah, I think sometimes we don't get told often enough how good you are. So use this phrase at this moment in time. You are awesome. um, yeah, and it is. It's tough, and bullying is horrible. It's something that I don't want anybody to ever go through. But at the same time, like Lauren, you were saying there that your self-reflection, that's just incredible. That is so good to see back that how proud you were of what you were doing. And yeah, I'm kind of lost for words. Yeah, sorry.
No,
Just
no, it's I think it's so important that I've had time to think about it, because I've had to help others go through it. So
yeah,
that always gives you another, okay, I need to actually think about what did I go through and how did I manage it. And so what I do with the mentoring and stuff, it allows me to look back and think, well, actually, no, what did I go through? Let's tackle it instead of
yeah,
just blocking it out.
yeah. No, exactly. And there's one little bit as well that I was going to briefly touch upon, slightly coming away from the topic of bullying. It was nutrition for teenagers, balancing, because, and I'm not going to go into it because that's a whole other topic in itself, but I think with getting that balance right, getting fuel, especially if you're a student athlete, because there are fatigue, injury, brain fog, being able to kind of be alert. Nutrition is such an important aspect, and I do think social media doesn't help with regards to body image, how you're supposed to look, weight, skin folds, this, that, and the other. There's so much pressure around it that I think it's important for especially young developing athletes to know there's no fad diet that you should be on as a teenager. There's no such thing as bad food, just bad diet, in a sense of, packet of crisps, fine. Chocolate bar, fine. 12 packet of crisps at once, probably not.
No, not fine.
Yeah, everything in moderation. But
Yeah.
and especially at school and around bullying and looks and shape and size, food can be the first thing that gets cut out, especially if you're a growing athlete, developing athlete. You can have conditions such as red S. Girls have their menstrual cycle impacted. Red S happens as well to boys as well as girls, and it's just not fueling enough. And it's not just fueling for your sport, it's fueling for your mind as well. Because lack of nutrition can impact your hangry, it can impact your emotions,
Yeah.
can impact your brain function, the ability to study, because as well you use up a lot of fuel when you're trying to study. And then if you're adding sport on top of that as well, so snacking a little and often, having good meals, not skipping breakfast, those sorts of things. And I think it's important to try and get a good relationship with food. But that again is just a whole other topic in itself, and it is hard trying to do that. But it's just something to kind of throw in there that I think is important to be said with this positive life balance as well. We can get like positive relationship with food, use it as fuel, use it as a supporting factor for, a healthy mind, healthy body, healthy lifestyle. And that doesn't mean carrots and oranges. It's everything. It's, yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, and I didn't even think of that today. So thanks for bringing that up. Nutrition, massive one, and I think we will get a nutritionist on this season, because we've never had one before on this season, and I know someone who would be amazing to come on. So that would be a really interesting topic. So thank you for bringing that one up. Sparked my my thought process there. It's not easy. I think we've established that today.
Whether you're an athlete listening or a parent listening, I think the two sides are slightly different. Parents, I think it's important to monitor your child in a sense of burnout. Are they getting enough fuel in? Are they, getting that balance right? Are they overwhelmed? Do they need an outlet? If you're passionate and you want them to do well in sport and they're doing very well, it's great, but allow them to maybe have an outlet of sorts. I think it's important to have something that's not just sport related, whether it is going off and seeing friends, whether it is having a different hobby. I think, the parent can have a huge helping factor in helping the teenager or the young athlete to get that balance right. And for the athletes as well, that things do get better. Things can, and don't be afraid that if things are tough right now, there are ways around it. As I say, speak to people, speak to your parents, speak to family, speak to your teammates. There's so many people you can speak to. Don't bottle it up. And don't be afraid to try something like organize, like create a calendar, create a timetable, have a little look and see other ways of managing it. If that doesn't work, then arrange study groups or speak to your teammates, see what, they can do to help. Don't ever feel like you're on your own with things. As I say, a balance is like that precipice tipping point. It never stays level. It will tip up and down at some point. And the days that it does go level, great, enjoy them, celebrate them. But the days that the levels are slightly off, it's not the end of the world. It will, it will level back off again, but there are things that you can do to maybe help manage that. But I definitely think communication is going to be important. Speak out. Don't feel like you're on your own with it.
Great wrap up there. I don't think I need to do one now off that. I do think that, everything Hannah just said, listen to it twice, 3 times. It's so true. We are human. We will get it wrong. We will get it right. We will learn. We will grow. That's what we're here to do. So if you do get it wrong, it's fine. Just get those scales back out, rebalance it, make a cake with it if you can. But honestly, just do your best. Be in the moment, stay in the moment, and control what you can control. Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We get a lot of questions, or we have a lot of people approach us about this topic. So it's really nice that we've been able to discuss it today. We hope you've learned a lot, and we hope you have a great week. And we look forward to seeing you next week for another episode.